You're listening to Pan Society Radio. I'm Laura Giles, the co-founder of Pan Society, and today's topic is finding joy in ritual. I'm joined today by our guest, Cherie Calvert, director of Pan Society and owner of the Dancing Magpie. But let's start with a little ritual of opening the show by calling in the elements. I call to the element of earth and invite this energy to come in and help to ground us, bringing us stability so that we may move in an organized, disciplined way. I call to the element of air to strengthen our ability to communicate clearly with both reason, intuition, and originality. I call to the element of fire to give us strength, power, and to help us move forward with responsibility to bring our ideas into the material world when they may do some good. I also call to the element of water to help us proceed with care and connection so that we may transform what needs to be changed in our lives. I'd like to express gratitude to the helping ancestors and other energies, both seen and unseen, for all the help we've gotten so far and continue to receive. I'd like to thank all our listeners for tuning in. We're a news station that's just getting out there, so every like and share you do on Twitter and Facebook helps a lot. Your donations are also very much appreciated and needed to keep us on the air. Finally, I'd like to thank and welcome our guest, Cherie Calvert. Thanks for being here, Cherie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, sure. Can you start by telling us your story?
My path is a little bit different, or my path in life. Fortunately, I grew up with parents that believed. So, being of Asian descent, it was always in our household. So I didn't think anything different of it from, normal life. And I grew up with it.
Okay. And how did you learn to do ritual?
Ritual, once again, it was a natural thing. With my mother being Korean, we had certain things that we did all the time, every time, whether it be moon time or certain birthdays, births, deaths, everything. And then on my father's side, he was a practicing druid, so we had rituals that were of his faith as well included in our lives.
Ah, okay. So, how did you jump from paganism to panism? Are they overlapping things that you do simultaneously? Are they kind of like the same thing? Are they different things?
It's actually interesting. To me, I think everything is connected. So they are all the same, all different, all it just depends on how we connect with it. But I think they all have an overlapping theme or an overlapping workings in the universe because we are all connected and not separate in our own.
And so we're talking about ritual, just so that we're all on the same page. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Um, to me, ritual is a repetitive act. It's getting up in the morning and doing the same routine, whether you get up and you brush your teeth every morning or you start the coffee pot every morning or your routine for going to bed. So ritual is just routine. It's something we do every day.
And how does that relate to spirituality?
I think as it relates to spirituality, it's you have rituals that you have every day, whether you're stirring intention into your cup of coffee that you're going to have a good day, or it gives you good feelings as well, so that you know when you're looking forward to a certain part of your day or your ritual, whether that be your nighttime routine before bed or the one that you start in the mornings. Um, all of it helps, and it gives. Like with me, I have some that give me connections to earth in the morning because part of my rituals in the morning include, walking in my garden or in the woods around my house or my animals.
So it sounds like I'm playing devil's advocate, like I don't know anything because I'm, thinking for the listener here and what questions they might have for you. So it sounds like the your rituals are just part of your everyday life, and they're not necessarily separate. Like your spirituality is not separate. Am I hearing that right?
That's correct. Because I think you have to live it. With whatever you believe in life, you can't be a weekend practitioner. I think you have to have it every day in your life.
Hmm. So what about the things like you mentioned, funerals? Is that a different kind of ritual, or is that what? Tell me about that.
Well, for us, death is just as important as life. In Korean culture, you mourn for a couple of days, and it's horrible and heartbreaking, but it's one of those that helps relief. We don't have the separate, uh, preparing the body, having a short funeral, and then it's in the ground and awake, and then we go home. This is the community and everybody all together, families, and it's a powerful feeling. So we feel like we're honoring that person as they're leaving us, and we respect their passing as well.
So there are like personal daily rituals that you decide for yourself, and then there are community rituals.
I think so, because I think everybody's different. I have a healthy respect for the dying, and I think with Korean culture, we don't just lock them up in a hospice or whatever. We try to, if we can, we try to take care of them at home, and we know it's coming. So we have, up until the day, the certain types of foods you eat, the certain clothing that you wear. And I think, and not only Asian culture, there are other cultures that observe certain things too, like the Jewish culture or African. I think we all have something like sort of rituals that go along with it.
And how do the seasons impact your rituals, or do they?
They do. I like to observe, because you have to observe when you're putting away things for the next year, when you're saving your seed, or when you're sowing your seeds for the bounty that you're going to get, when it's time to rest, when it's time to wake up and be alive. Absolutely, I observe the season changes.
And does that impact your what you do in your rituals?
Some of them do, because some of them it changes what energy you're involving, whether it's an awake, life, fiery energy, or whether it's a calm, soothing energy, and it changes the routines that I do or my rituals in life every day as well, because um, and my eating habits, which is part of my rituals as well. But yeah, I'm sorry, I like ran away with that one. But yeah, seasonal changes do affect the ritual changes as well.
So what are some of the things that you're doing as a community, or do you do anything as a community?
Some things we do as a community, because there are things that we do uh, that are very similar, because there are a lot of people that I know that have different beliefs, and some of them that they do overlap a little bit. So the things that do overlap, we do observe together, and then there are also things that we absolutely do on our own, because we do things differently, and then some things are also way more personal, and we don't share those.
Um, so what if I'm not Korean? And I'm just, so I didn't grow up with this. I'm not Korean. I don't have any, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I'm interested. Any tips for that person?
I think the biggest thing is tapping into your ancestors. Um, we, as a, as, located in southern Alabama, um, and it's interesting because there is a very Christian, um, what's the word? It's very Christian here, and but they have rituals too. Whether they want to say the word or not, that's fine. But we do have overlapping beliefs as far as with Asian culture, we have our altars to our ancestors and our family, and as most Americans have a mantle or a wall filled with pictures to their beloved dead and the people that came before them. It's the same thing, and we all talk to them. So I recommend developing a relationship with your ancestors and sitting down and talking to them and asking them for guidance.
Okay. Is that part of the ritual then, or is that something different?
Um, it is included in my life. I do talk every day, and maybe not at a set time, but I find it a habit. Like it's whether I'm doing something or if something breaks in my house, or if I drop a plate while I'm washing dishes, or I trip or something, especially when if something's heavy on my mind, and I'm like, oh, okay, okay, I'm listening. So what are you going to tell me? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a ritual. I think I would start off trying to make it a thing, but then eventually it'll just become a habit that you do every day in your life.
So it's just kind of, it sounds like it's just kind of a way of practicing mindfulness.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Um, So how do these ancestors help, or how do they play into the whole definition, the whole practice of spirituality?
Um, so that's a big question. Uh, the ancestors are supposed to be our guides, our helpful. I mean, they came before us. They have experience, and also there's a lineage, a cultural story that's always being told, that's passed down. You just have to listen. So I think you have to be aware and have them. If you have a great connection with your ancestors, I think a lot of things in life do become easier, and you'll have more people to ask for answers. And then also, they help you steer you in the right direction when you're being hard headed and you're stubborn and you want to do something, and they know it's absolutely wrong for you.
So, how do they? Again, I'm thinking for the listener here, who may be like, "What is she talking about?" So, how do they communicate? Is it in dreams? Is it? How does this happen?
For me, it growing up, we were all dreams are a great one. I love that. Growing up, my mother always used to ask us, how did we dream? What did we dream about? Who did we talk to? Did we learn anything? And as a kid, you're like, well, why are you asking me this? Or it would be fantastical. You would have a crazy dream, but it didn't mean anything to you. And then as an adult, I can appreciate all of that more. So yes, dreams are a way to communicate. Sometimes you'll get triggered by a certain scent, like say you're standing in your living room and all of a sudden you smell something like lavender, but there's no lavender in your house. But there's somebody in your past that used to love lavender, or there's an association. So it could be a smell, whispers, and sometimes a lot of people have really great intuition and can hear them, or they actually sense them in the room, so they know what they want. Everybody's experience is different, and I think that's like the beauty of it too. But it's also the struggle, because we have to learn to pay attention to these things around us.
Okay, so it's not a black and white thing.
Oh no, I don't think anything really is.
Okay. Okay. So what about these people who, again, I'm running away with it, like you said, thinking of anticipating people's questions who this is completely new to them. So how do I know that I'm not delusional?
Um, you know what? See, that's a tricky one. I think there are religions, because they talk about other ones where they say head on fire and things like that, and they also say that there are a lot of people that are in places. I know we don't have sanitariums anymore, but places like that have been tapped, and they just say they're crazy. So honestly, I think you really have to check with yourself. Like, everybody has a different normal. So if your ancestor is asking you to murder somebody, obviously this is not. You need to get checked on. This is not the right way to go, or what. I can't imagine anybody's ancestors would ask for this. So this is a big sign that maybe you should go see somebody, professional or something. But I think for the most part, like, if you're being told, you know kneel, or plant a garden or something, like you're being told something inspirational or something motivational that's going to make you move, I think it's a good sign. I think it's a good sign that your ancestors are talking to you, and that you're not crazy or mentally ill. And I think sometimes you're right. We do confuse the two, but I think it's just paying attention to the signs and then trusting yourself.
Okay. And what role does culture play in how your spirituality manifests?
It's a big one. I think you can't just. Uh, this is bringing the ancestors in again. We have a strong. If we listen to it and we build a strong connection, they're always going to guide us in the beliefs and the lessons that came before us. Um, so I would say it was hard for somebody who doesn't have. Um, Say it's somebody who has no African ties whatsoever, yet they want to practice Yoruba or Ifa. I think it's hard to do that when you don't have ancestors or connections to that. So I think it's extremely important to find out where you come from or what's in your background so that you have ties to it, because that's where you're going to get pulled the most, and that's where you're going to draw more energy from.
Well, let's say, okay, let's say that I am really attracted to Viking stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a, and I feel strongly, or maybe I had a past life regression, some kind of way I feel like it is in my ancestry, but I can't place it in my DNA. What would you suggest to that person?
Um, so I like the idea of the past life and that connection, because I also think those are strong as well, because they will continue on, and there is a connection there. I think if you actually have a pool, I believe it's there and you should explore it, or at least it will lead you to where you truly get your strength from.
Okay. Okay. So I know you facilitate moon circles. What is the importance of that for you? Do you consider that a ritual?
Absolutely. I think as women, we all have phases of life between our birth, our changing into womanhood, and being able to carry a child and give birth, and all the all the phases after that. And I think it's really important. I think it helps with the conversation, because it's I'm when I first started them, I came across a lot of women that didn't talk about this stuff, especially here in the southeast. It's we just don't have these conversations. So when you sit there and listen to the stories, and people are just shocked, and everybody's is different, and so we laugh, we cry, we hug each other, and it opens doors up so that when they're bringing their daughters into womanhood, we plan ceremonies about it. We make it important. We make it not taboo and not icky, and so that they know that this is a strength in their life and a power that they're getting. And I think it really, really helps, especially in societies or little clusters that are this is just stuff they don't talk about every day.
I would imagine that Alabama is pretty conservative. So how did you get something like this started in that kind of community? Or am I just like making assumptions that are not really based in reality?
No, you're absolutely correct. It is extremely conservative, but um, we do have these pockets of small groups of people who are asking questions or looking for something, and so they kind of stumble onto us. Starting the circle, I was fortunate enough to have two or three friends that were like-minded, and they helped start the circle. And then slowly, organically, other people were coming. Um, I will say it's difficult in the beginning, especially with, once again, people, women that don't get to talk about these things every day. They don't. It's one of those things you suffer alone, and when they first get experience to certain things in our groups, they, especially the ones that knew us for a while, they were shocked at first, and some actually didn't come around for a while, and then they realized, hey, we're good people, we're doing good things, and this is not weird stuff. This is stuff that's happening, and we need to talk about it, and we need to understand it so that we can teach our daughters and our sisters and our mothers so that everybody knows.
So the circle is a class?
I wouldn't say it's a class. It's conversational. We all do learn. Everybody, we all learn something all the time, every day. But we get to talk about it, and then every now and then we get to bring in professionals to explain more if we need be, because it only just makes us stronger.
So, okay. I'm a person who's kind of curious about Pan, and I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, okay, Moon Circle, I don't know what that is. Why would this be for me? Can you make it more personal? Like what happens? Why would I go there? What would I be
Um,
searching for that might say, oh, this is what I need?
All right, so our moon circles are healing. So what we do is we usually have a meeting around the new moon. It's an energy that we like. It's brand new, clean slate. We're trying something new. Each meeting usually has a different focus, and it's usually a healing focus. So whether it be how to deal with trauma or rituals to help us heal, um, all of them are different. And then sometimes, because it's not my group, I'm just helping facilitate it. It's all of our group. Some women will bring up something that they want to discuss the next time. So whether it be sexual assault, or they just want to have a talking circle where they just get to talk and no one gets to interrupt them or add into it. It's just bearing witness and listening. So uh, each one is different in its own right.
Okay. So how can you give us an idea of like how the development of this in your community has progressed?
We started off with, I think, four. Our group got up to 12 or more, or a little over 12. It was fluctuating due to everybody's schedule and then the space that can contain us. And then I noticed other groups started popping up around the city, which is great. So if you're not finding what you need with our group, there's obviously choices now, and I love that.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you get people saying you guys are weird devil worshippers, that kind of thing, and like just are kind of hating on you?
Of course. Absolutely. Once again, it's really conservative. It's heavily Christian here. Um, a lot of people call us, the term is woo woo. So if they walk down the street or something, they call you a woo woo girl. That's kind of what they're talking about. Or they'll flat out, we've been to certain things and have been picketed, or
Oh, you have?
we have. We've absolutely had people come in and give us flyers and actually lay hands on us, which upsets us tremendously because you just don't touch people,
Right,
especially.
right.
Yeah. So we've had our fair share of things, but I think things are changing, and once some people take the time to actually get to know us and realize that we do great things in the community, and that we're we are nice people, and we're not sacrificing babies or anything like that. Some people come around, and then there's always going to be the handful that just refuse to give us time, and that's fine. We're okay with that.
Hmm. Hmm. So have you struggled to be out of the closet, so to speak?
Um, so I have mine is it's funny. As a child, teenager, in high school, I was absolutely fine. I was okay, and I think at that time you want to be different anyway. It didn't really impact me until I got married, and I got married young. I was married at like 19, and then I realized like my choices affected my husband's choice, his life and career and stuff, and I was mostly around people who didn't care. But then, when I got married and I moved down and moved to a new town, it was a totally different experience. So um, it fluctuated, and then I realized, well, I didn't realize, but I felt that my choices and what how out I was affecting. I thought it was affecting my husband's career, so I kind of toned it down a lot, and then I stopped being observant and stopped being mindful, and kind of closeted myself a little bit. But uh, um, later on, when we moved around a little bit, it started to get to me. I started to get depressed. I wasn't happy, and I wasn't observing the season changes. And then where we had moved to was cold, like a good chunk of the year. So I thought that was part of it, which it may have been, but then also not observing it, because I think that's part of the ritual, is checking in and knowing that it's time to rest. And I didn't have a good, vibrant summer and spring. So when winter came around, I was still in that not waking up and sleepy mode, and it really affected my mood for sure. So then I stayed closeted, and then I just internalized everything, and then I stopped being a practitioner for a while until I realized that it was hurting me. Like I needed to start practicing again and being happy, because practicing made me happy.
Hmm. I think that's a common feeling for women when we get into relationships and we kind of lose ourselves in the role of wife or mother or uh, chauffeur or team,
Right.
team supporter. Um, so would you say that practicing gives you a way of staying in touch with your core self or your femininity or your spirituality or all the above, none of the above?
Oh, I think all of it. So with my husband, that was a me thing. Like I thought I was doing him a favor, but little did I know he actually relished that I was different. He loved it, and then he didn't understand why I changed, and then
Oh,
he was upset that I had changed for him.
uh-huh.
because he didn't ask me to. I was doing it on my own because I thought that that's what you're supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
So, it was, and it's one of those things. It does change things sexually. I wasn't feeling myself. I wasn't feeling feminine. I wasn't feeling in my energy. I wasn't in my element. I was a completely different person, and I was borrowing somebody else's skin, and it wasn't who I was. So when I realized that and started branching back out and being observant, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to get back into it. I was feeling a lot better, and I noticed that. Okay, get up in the morning, greet the sun. Yes, okay, I can do this. I can do this every day, and then start adding more and more to it. And then I was feeling better, and then I started feeling more feminine, and more myself. Absolutely, all that energy was coming back to me, and all that power was coming back to me.
So were you, I don't want to be reading into what you're saying, but it sounds like you're saying that you were kind of depressed, and then the ritual and connection kind of brought you out of that?
Absolutely. For me, I absolutely believe that 100%. I think because I wasn't doing what was in me, and what I was connected to, I lost all of that. And so it's kind of like when you have to nurture it. You have to nurture yourself. You have to take all of it, and you have to um, with nature and seasons and observing all of this, I think it does help fix your mood and fix who you are. And then, studies have shown doing certain things. I mean, it does, increase serotonin and endorphins, and it makes you happier. So I think ignoring who I was definitely made me depressed. And then when I started getting back to that, and being more observant and mindful, I was a happier person.
Yeah. I mean, it's my belief too that when you are in harmony with nature, then your own nature synchronizes and you can't help but be happy.
Right.
Yeah. So most of us are city dwellers, and Pan is obviously a nature religion that encourages regular contact and guidance from nature, the sun, the earth. So how can someone do this if they're living in a city?
So before we moved here to Alabama, we actually lived in a city, and it was very concrete. We're right on top of each other. Like my neighbors could look into my little patio. What I did was I actually created my own little garden paradise back there. I had plants. It was lush, and it was green, and it was vibrant, and it was pretty. So that was my little oasis. And I honestly, when I went out there, I couldn't hear the noises of everything happening outside of my walls. Um, I had tons of plants in my house. Being the silly girl, at night I would go out and lay out and just check in with the stars. And then if you can, like absolutely leave the cities when on weekends or whenever you can, and go to the beach and walk in the sand, or go to the forest, go hiking. It doesn't take that much to recharge.
Yeah,
Like
it doesn't.
and we have parks and availability everywhere. It's just pushing yourself to go and do it and enjoy it.
Now, I know you're an energy healer. Does this fit into your daily life, or is it just a profession? Is this part of it? How does this work in?
It does fit into my daily life because part of being able to help others, you have to help yourself first. So I'm constantly checking in with myself now and making sure I'm okay, because I don't do anybody else any good if I'm not good myself. And then it is part of my business, but the I had a calling one time, and it was to help people. Like it was to heal people, whether it be women, men, children, whoever, and community, and to be of service as well. So uh, it's huge for me, and I feel it. Like I feel when somebody walks by and they're in pain, and I wish I could help everybody, but also I can't be intrusive. I have to wait until somebody asks or gives permission, because consent's a huge thing, especially with energy. You just can't
I agree.
stuff.
Yes. So I know that. So you said your dad was studied or practiced Druidry, and your mom was Indigenous Korean, and I know you've also studied other traditions. How did you decide what what you are, what you're doing.
Um, so I don't think my decision is. I don't even know if it's a decision. So I'm not done learning. I'm not done experiencing things and reaching out. So I think this is an ancestral thing. I think listening to them because it comes in and out too. Like I'll feel that you need to start practicing this or looking into this or this is the energy you need to go with for now, and this is seasonal or whatever. And so that's how I'm learning because I think once I've got lessons in certain areas, I feel like somebody else is talking to me, and then they're like, "Explore this. Let me share this with you." So I do pick. It's not by choice. I don't just say, "Okay, I want to do this, this, and this." I think that's what I'm feeling at the moment, and that's what I'll go with because that's where my power is, and that's the ancestor that's tapped into me at the moment.
So could it be a Korean one this season and then a Druid one the next season?
I believe it can. Yes.
Okay. And how might that show up?
Um. So There, some of them are overlapping as far as my main business now is herbalism, but I think that comes from both of them. My mom was very into folk medicine. Granted, it was a whole different type of there was different herbs and different, and that's because she used what she grew up with and what
Right.
came from Korea. And then my
Hmm.
dad's thing is it's a different locale, so
Hmm.
and that's one of those things that I pull with. So if I'm practicing or making medicine for someone or making something, I pull both of those energies if that's both of those energies are talking to me at the moment for to
Ah,
have.
got it. Okay. Okay.
Even better is learning like I think a lot of people don't realize here in the southeast, even though we have a very conservative population, there are a lot of people that still practice folk healing and folk energy, and I don't think they realize they're doing it. Like the way they plant by the moon
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
seasonally, or and they don't realize that they're being observant, which
Hmm.
is it's fine. But yeah, that's how. Um, yeah, if you just listen to your ancestors, I think you'll find which energy to work with.
Well, I think a lot of people who don't have a parent to guide them might feel a lot of I think there's two types of people. Those that are just kind of woo woo and they just feel everything and do everything instinctively, and those that are kind of heady and it's like, well, wait a minute, and I need to know this is grounded in something. I need to know some proof, because they don't want to be considered like weird or
Right.
So again, you have these energies that are so different. It might make you feel like, hey man, I'm kind of schizophrenic. One way I'm over here, next day I'm over here. Any advice or anything you could say to that might give people a sense of clarity?
I think one of the big things that we all should be doing more of is grounding and meditating. um, because if we can calm ourselves long enough, we can actually hear what we need to be doing, or we can filter out the things that are unnecessary. And I think just practicing meditation, I come across a lot of people that, uh, especially here, that have no ancestral leanings or anything like that, and that's because they don't know. And then once again, they grew up in a conservative household, so now they're conflicted with that, with an upbringing of Christianity, and then they're like, "But I feel this," and so I usually tell them like, you don't have to dive into anything. Um, just focus on the for one that we're all interconnected somehow, and then take your time. Like find one thing that works for you. So meditation usually is one of those that's across the board. So if you just calm yourself, listen, and eventually you'll feel pulled to certain things. Whether it's are you a good gardener? Well, then maybe you have some kind of herbalism or something in your background, or are you into crystals? Are you into tarot cards? Whatever. Like you'll slowly start to work out who you are. Um, and then if you want to, you can do one of the DNA tests. Although I'm not 100% on all of those. Because something might pop up in your DNA, but that's not what your calling is, and
Hmm.
you might be chasing a rabbit
Hmm.
down a rabbit hole. But I think just take your time and follow your instincts. Just don't feel rushed to do anything. Just check in with nature, and do small steps every day, and then eventually you'll wake up one day and you will be doing it, and you've been doing it for a while and you didn't realize you were doing it.
Okay. So do you think then, I hear the theme of energy and ancestors. Is that an important piece of the ritual?
Um, some of it, yes. I think we need to listen to our ancestors, but I also think communing with nature is a big one. I can't explain all of the workings of it for me because I know doing ritual, and I think it depends on what you're needing at the time too. Because sometimes what we want may not be what we need. So there are outside forces that are helping us get to that point, whether we check in or not. But I think ancestor, like knowing where you come from and having them in your pocket, definitely uh, helps and is definitely an important part. And then as well as other elements that will tie together later when you figure out what you're doing.
Can you give me an example of how ritual has helped the groups in your community?
Um, we've had a lot of healing. We have, I think, one of the biggest things I can see is conservative women growing up. They're taught, you're a mother, you're a wife, you do this is your station in life. And so they're never taught to ask questions, or they're brought up a certain way. And I think as we're doing our groups, teaching them rituals, and they're developing their own things, they're feeling freer and they're not as, I notice that they're happier now. They don't feel like they're not being heard. Uh, and then they're standing in their own power as well. So no matter what happens during the day, they have their practices for themselves.
I noticed the same thing in our room service. And it's just a sense of, that women can be so catty
Yeah.
and combative and competitive, and it my observation is that they get softer and more of the healthy side of feminine than the unhealthy side.
Right.
Yeah.
And noticing here too, along with that, is more supportive of each other too, which I
Yeah.
think is huge. I think we should definitely, uh, and I love the meme. We're straightening our sister's crown, not knocking it off her head. and
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, so, and I love that. And I absolutely am seeing that. So, we see a lot of evidence of that too with the. So we've had, the crazy. I hate bringing politics into this, but like when we had a couple months ago with Roy Moore and Doug Jones, the election here, and then the sexual assault allegations that were brought up. It when it first started, like within our group, the conservative mind was, "Well, leave that man alone. We just don't talk about that kind of stuff." And then by the end of it, the women had changed and were like, "Well, maybe we should hear them. Like, why didn't they bring it up before?" And then so it became a discussion. And then so instead of hiding it, they were more open. Everybody was more open to listening to everybody else's opinion about it,
Mhm.
and no. So it's one of those things where now we get supportive of each other instead of tightening ranks and then not believing someone.
Mhm. So it sounds like when you first got to where you are now in Alabama, there wasn't much of a community there. Is that right?
I wouldn't say that there wasn't much in the community. It's the ability to find people,
Ah,
and I think
okay.
that's what it is. Like with my husband's job, well, when I first met him, he was in the Navy, so we moved around with that, and then after he got out, the job that he took still caused us to move around a lot. So, which is okay. I'm okay with changes because I love it. I get to meet new people, but it also makes it really hard because when you go to a new area, it's getting easier and easier now that we have internet. But before, it was harder to find like-minded people. So uh, when you go to a community, especially like here in the South and Birmingham, Alabama, not a lot of people are out and connected, and so um, it's one of those things that you strive to try to find somebody else to practice with. And then also everybody practices differently, and not everybody has the same goal. So it's trying to find um, people that are like-minded with you and have the same beliefs and goals as well, so that you're in a safe environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say the internet is the best way to do that now?
Oh, for sure. It's so much easier to connect with people now. We have so many Facebook groups, local web pages and stuff now. You can find them. You can find other groups. I do find so my experience coming here, even then, like when you reach out to groups, they're still very wary of introducing newcomers because they also don't know who you are and what you're about.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to infiltrate too, which is weird to me, like the weird concept of just trying to um, cause distraction or hurt somebody for, because they don't believe in the same things you do. But so because of that, it does take longer to build relationships in the community. So they may invite you to something, but may not embrace you until like 6 months later when they
Yeah.
realize it's
Yeah.
not an enemy.
So you mentioned safety, and that's something we haven't talked about. Are there concerns about that?
Physical, I wouldn't say that. I think more of it is well, I think it depends. There are a lot of people that are closeted here, and it's because they might lose their jobs. They might not be able to feed their families. So I don't. It's not necessarily physical attack. Unless you do consider when they do come in and lay their hands on you, that is assault. But
Yeah.
um, it's not like they're going to come in and beat you up or anything. But
Yeah.
it's also the fact that they're going to out you. And then a lot of places, employers are, have certain thoughts in their mind about what you do and may not give you the chance. And just because you don't believe in the same things they do, you might not have a job the next time because somebody's definitely going to out you.
Hmm. Yeah, that is a concern.
Oh, for sure. Especially now that, with internet and everything else, we don't have a lot of anonymity.
Yeah. Yes. So, uh, does going on this path and engaging in ritual mean that I have to be a healer or you mentioned earlier, I think you said something about divination. I don't know if you talked about tarot cards or something like that. Does it mean that you have to engage in all of that stuff? What if I'm just completely not interested in healing anybody or being a psychic? I just want to do my thing and live my life.
I think that's absolutely great. I think um, if you're called to do healing or if you're called to do divination or whatever or crystals, though, that's you. Everybody's an individual. Some people aren't called to do those things or aren't drawn to do them or don't want to, and that's absolutely fine. I think the most important part is just knowing who you are and just being connected with the universe and nature, like just knowing and being in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I don't think everybody needs to be. I mean, if we were all the same thing, then we would be lacking in a lot of other things.
Oh, right,
We're all
right,
the tailors and bakers and moms. If everybody's
right.
being a healer or, something.
Right. And plus, I think there are positions you don't want. Like, I think healing is a hard one. I think people don't realize. Like, it sounds great um, because you're doing a good thing for others, right? Especially if you're in a position to help someone that Western thinking hasn't been able to help. Western medicine or Western psychiatry, whatever. Um, but it also it's isolating as well because unless you know others, it's hard to share experiences. Plus, you really don't share, um, you know, what you're going through or what other people are going through. And also, like nowadays, it's a little bit easier because we have a better understanding of it. But back in tribal days, that person didn't get married or didn't have a family because it was hard. It was a hard job, and so you were you were either feared and respected, or respected, and so it was a job that nobody wanted really.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
you're definitely set apart.
right,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, like I think teacher is another one. I think sometimes people think, oh, I have this great thing. it's so new to me. I want to share, but in my opinion, there's a lot of things that you need to learn before you can be a adequate teacher.
Absolutely agree. I think it takes time to gather knowledge and experience and then to be able to talk about it. Like, there are people out there that are amazing and can learn things so quickly. And even then, sometimes you can do and not be a fabulous teacher, and that's okay. But I think that relation, like, so being a teacher, that's a respected position. So sometimes I have a hard time. I want you to be, like, in my mind, and this is my bias. I want you to be older. Like, I want you to be wizened, so that I feel like I'm getting experience behind everything as well.
Right.
And that teacher-student relationship, I think that's extremely important, and it's a lifetime connection. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think we have that in, like, the U.S. for one. Like, I tend to see, like, a definite instant gratification. Like, everybody wants to be a Jedi Master, like, on the
Yeah.
first day.
Yeah.
And not realize that you have to work for this.
Yes. It's definitely a thing that unfolds in its own time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, animism is follows nature, and nature isn't instantaneous at all.
No, and it's being slow and observing and learning and watching and seeing the changes as they happen.
Yeah. And you've got to be okay with upheaval. I mean, like right now, we're dealing with this hurricane and it's creating a ton of upheaval. And if you're not stable, it's going to unbalance you.
Hmm.
So there's a whole lot to learn.
Right, and then also you have to have those connections. So if
Yes.
you don't have a mentor, but you are a teacher, like, it's who do you go to when your life is turned upside down, or when energies have just got you crazy and you need grounding? Like, who do you go to?
Yeah. So I think the community is so important.
Absolutely,
People
I
around you,
absolutely.
people above you, the ancestors. Yeah, all of that is really, really important.
I think it keeps everybody in check too, so that because sometimes some people are in a position, and it's corrupting as well. Like, if you're in a certain position, or and maybe the wrong energies are drawn to those positions, like the ones that want to be leaders so fast.
Yes.
It can be very scary.
Yes. So with you having it as just part of your upbringing, did you get to get a pass from that?
I don't think so. I think I'm terrified of um, leading classes, or, like, there's certain things I could talk about forever and ever and ever, but I still don't know everything about it. So I will always get questions that can stump me, and I'm not going to tell you, oh well, I'm not going to give you a crazy answer that I'm just pulling out of my hat. I'm going to say, well, I don't know. Let's look this up together, or let's find somebody who does know, or you know. So there are certain things that I'm not comfortable teaching, and I won't teach until I'm comfortable. If you have, I've run across people that ask me questions. So I'm like, well, I will try to find you somebody who can answer that or can teach you that. Just because I have the respect for the people that did, study it and devote time and sacrifice for it. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not up for teaching everything. Certain things I'm comfortable, and certain things, a lot of things I'm still learning, and I think we all should be like that too. I think we all are constantly learning.
And how do you choose your workshops, mentors, teachers, that kind of thing, classes?
So a lot of it right now is word of mouth or experience. Like, I try to take as many workshops as I can, or seminars or retreats, because I'm always thirsty for a different technique or something maybe that I haven't heard of, or something. And with today, everybody's also making everything their own, so they're taking something that's has been done, has been passed on, but they've changed a little bit. So I want to see how it works. So I'll have that full of people. So, like, if I go to those and I absolutely love something somebody did, or it felt amazing, I'll always have a checklist of, like, I always keep a list of names of, oh, maybe I should bring them in, and maybe this will be a good idea where I live. So I have been fortunate enough to do all of that. Um, then I try to do as many online seminars as well. But as far as bringing in teachers, that's how I get them. As far as what I am comfortable teaching, um, I have a test group of a couple of friends, and I will run it through them. And if I feel comfortable running it through them, then it's something I might offer publicly. But if I, stumble or I'm not, I feel like, okay, maybe I wasn't prepared for this, then I won't offer it publicly.
Hmm. So what kind of things do you have going on in your area?
Right now, we just started a new thing at one of the yoga studios I teach at, called Raja Yoga. One of the reasons I chose the studio that I teach at is I don't teach yoga, I teach belly dance there. Just to clarify, so I'm not a yogi, or I love practicing yoga, but I'm not a teacher. But I chose the studio because I wanted that full mind, body, and spirit connection. I didn't want to go to a yoga studio that was, um, filled with uh, who was wearing the best outfit or the newest, most expensive outfit, who could do the hardest poses, and then they just went home or they went and got their smoothies and whatever. That is not the kind of experience I wanted. I wanted one that actually did the whole thing, because there's an 8 limb path, I think in mostly Ashtanga yoga, that has a whole mind, body, spirit connection. So we started a group up for just that, to explore the more esoteric paths of yoga, because it's not just poses. The poses do lead you somewhere. The poses do give you mindfulness and help with like mental ascension and things like that, and breathing as well. But there's more to it than that. So we started introducing that. I think we're on like our second class this time, and the response has been pretty good actually. So once again, being in a conservative area, and so we have a lot of women that come to the yoga studio, and we do love our yoga community. We love our spiritual community, and they always surprise us as well as us surprising them. So when we had we had experiences of, oh my God, what are you guys doing? And then especially ones that have known us for a while, and so they would disappear for a couple of weeks, and then be like, you know what? Okay, you're the same person. Nothing has changed. And then you start to see that shift of, oh, okay, energies. I understand energies. Okay, so we feel this all the time. That's what I was experiencing, and so we slowly get that connection. So with the Raja Yoga class, we're slowly each class we're introducing them to a newer concept, and there's 3 of us alternating. So everybody, if they attend all of them, all 3 of us teachers' classes, they're getting a different experience from it and a different perspective. So because we all each have our own different techniques and our different paths and our different cultural backgrounds as well. So they're getting a really great experience out of all of it, and a different opportunity that I wish I'd had when I was younger.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's just so many things that you can't even appreciate until you've done it.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So how can people get in contact with you if they'd like more information?
They can find me on Facebook. I have my website, thedancingmagpie.com, and I'm on Instagram as well. And you can find me, at thedancingmagpie.com for now.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Cherie Calvert of Dancing Magpie, and thank you all for listening. We're a listener-sponsored station, so if you benefited from today's broadcast, please consider donating today at pansociety.net. Every donation, whether large or small, helps us to continue reaching out to you and a larger audience. See you all next week.